That was a nice move by Pipkins, taking it right to the rack himself. Wide open three, left wing, and it's good. Nylon, the dunk likes that, Matt.
A three from the right side, and it's good! Lawan Pipkins, the man, yet again.
Hello, and welcome to The Flex. I'm Matt St. Jean.
And this is Joe Howie.
And welcome back. It's finally time. Providence Friars. We're giving you the Providence Friars action, setting you up for this season so you know what to expect from the team. We're going to pick up where we left off last year. I'm sure you remember the story. In Brooklyn, the Friars drop a game by 32 points to Florida, fall to 6-6 on the season. Things look like they're falling apart. Then the team turns it around and turns it on in Big East play, wins the last 6 games of the season, beat 5 ranked teams, I believe, to end the season, and won 12 Big East games, a record for the team, in spectacular fashion behind Lawan Pipkins, Alpha Diallo, David Duke, A.J. Reeves, Khalif Young, Nate Watson, all these guys playing some of the best ball the Friars had seen under Ed Cooley before the season got canceled. It went from one of the most dreadful starts to a season in Providence history to one of, if not the most exciting end to a season that I have ever witnessed from a college basketball team. But now we're turning to 2020, and so many of those names that I just listed are no longer going to be on the team. Joe, you want to pick up where I left off there?
Yeah, Matt, I think when you talk about the transition from last season to the current season, there's 5 big names that you're going to miss in Lawan Pipkins, Malik White, Alpha Diallo, Emmett Holt, and Khalif Young, the 5 seniors that have graduated and moved on. These guys, they were the heart and soul of this team in every aspect. When this team was down, it was because their seniors were down. When this team was up, it was because the seniors were up. It was a constant up and down battle, but they found the right momentum at the right time. Alpha Diallo and Lawan Pipkins were 2 of the team's 3 leading scorers, and they were arguably the 2 most impactful players on that roster throughout the entire season. Khalif Young and Malik White were 2 constants throughout the entire year, especially on defense. Malik White being a powerful 6-man combo guard off the bench, and Khalif Young coming in and giving solid defensive minutes in the paint. And let's not forget Emmett Holt, who was the heart, the soul, the fire that lighted the spark that the Friars took to win the final 6 games. He's been on the team for maybe 20 years. He got this team motivated to essentially earn their big dance, what was supposed to be their big dance berth. But Matt, those guys are gone, and the lineup that you saw, especially in that 6-game win streak, that was on the floor for a majority of minutes: Pipkins at the 1, Malik White at the 2, Alpha Diallo at the 4, Khalif Young at the 5, and David Duke at the 3. So while that was a senior-led team, David Duke definitely left his fingerprints all over that season, which is something that is huge for the upcoming season. Matt, do you want to talk about what's upcoming with the new roster?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you lose a lot of key guys there. But the Friars have been preparing to lose those guys. There was a transition plan in place here, and it does start with David Duke. You're building around him. He was a top 50 recruit a couple years ago. Now going into his junior year, that's where you're supposed to really make that leap. This is a guy who averaged 12 points a game last year, over 4 assists, and over 4 rebounds, over 3 assists per game, a steal and a half per game. He's a guard who can do it at both ends of the floor, and he's got a lineup that complements him. The projected starting lineup right now, you've got Jared Bynum running the point, the transfer from St. Joe's. We'll get into him a little bit more later. David Duke at the 2, A.J. Reeves at the 3, Noah Horkler, the North Florida transfer, at the 4, and big Nate Watson at the 5. And you've got a solid top 6 with Greg Gant probably being your first guy off the bench. Jared Bynum is a guy that I know the PC is very high on behind closed doors. It's a 5'10" true assist-driven guard. He had 4.5 assists per game as a freshman at St. Joe's. He's had a year to sit behind closed doors and learn the system for the Friars, gain that maturity. He can pass it. He can work in transition. He can score too. He averaged double-digit points as a freshman. This is a guy, I mean, he kind of combines a lot of the things we've seen from your recent point guards in Providence. He's got a little bit of that Kyron Cartwright in size, in effort, in ability to hit shots and make crazy plays when you need them. He's got a little bit of that Malik White ability to turn a corner, drive to the rim, and make that effort on defense. And he's got that Pipkins too. He's able to hit those clutch shots. He's able to just make plays. And he's a hustle player. Bynum's a guy that fits in really well. David Duke, he does everything. He is just a really, really special player. And with Bynum really running the point, Duke is freed up to be a scorer where he was at his best last season. Horchler's a guy coming in from North Florida, averaged 16 points a game there. He can score, he can rebound, he can shoot the three ball, he can be a rim protector at 6'8". He's a real athletic guy, and he brings a veteran experience here. I know the team likes him a lot. And Nate Watson, you know what you're getting out of him. He's one of the best offensive players in the post in all of the Big East, and he's an offensive rebound machine. The other four guys on the floor are missing shots. Watson will clean it up and put them back up for points. Those four guys, in and of themselves, are dynamic and can lead this team to be very, very good.
You're completely right, Matt. I think for a lot of Friar fans, you know exactly what you're going to get with those four guys. Now, that also leaves A.J. Reeves, who is the fifth member of that projected starting five. And the reason we save him for last is because A.J. Reeves, alongside Greg Gant, Jimmy Nichols, and Chris Monroe, are going to need to take a huge jump this year. And the reason Reeves, although a starter, is left out of these you know what you're going to get kind of guys is because of inconsistencies. Now, we all know he can score. We all know he's got that pretty jump shot from beyond the arc. But what we need to see more of is Reeves putting up double digits night after night. There were some nights he wouldn't score at all. And I understand with a senior-led team, you're going to lose minutes because of that. But he set himself a very high ceiling on opening night his freshman year. He set his career high with 29 points, and he has yet to reach it again. I think this needs to be a big breakout season for A.J. Reeves. With Alpha Diallo gone, A.J. is going to log a lot of the minutes on the wing, especially at the three position. Next, you have Greg Gant. Greg Gant, for a freshman last year, he got some quality minutes. I think the peak of his career was definitely his 20 minutes at home against Seton Hall. You know, he played a huge defensive role that game. He's very long, he's strong, and according to Ed Cooley in multiple over the summer podcasts, his body is sick right now. So I'm very excited to see what he can do on defense. But if he's going to be a six-man off the bench, he's got to bring some offensive efficiency with him. He's got to up his scoring. Jimmy Nichols, we saw a glimpse of freshman year. He started a handful of games before a shoulder injury sidelined him. Again, the following year, his sophomore year last season, he started one game. He had a couple of monster dunks. He is long. He's 6'8". He's got to have an 11-foot wingspan. He is super lanky. He's the Slenderman coming off the bench. He's put on some muscle, according to Cooley. He's going to be your backup 4, maybe even the 5, depending on who's out, who's not. He needs to take a big jump too. And Chris Monroe is someone we haven't really seen a lot of. He's gotten a few minutes here and there. He's kind of been lost in that sea of depth on the bench. But according to Cooley on a podcast with Kevin McNamara the other day, Chris Monroe has been improving on the wing. He plays as small as the 3 and as big as the 5. He has a good three-point jump shot, and he's expecting to see some big minutes this year. I think with Greg, Nichols, and Monroe off the bench, you're going to see a lot of depth at that wing spot, which Cooley loves. He loves positionless wings. He loves matchup nightmares. And again, back to A.J. Reeves, he's going to have to take a big jump.
Yeah, I think Chris Monroe's a guy, you look for him to, he was supposed to be a good three-ball shooter coming out of high school. We've never seen that. If he can add that, he can really be dynamic. And Nichols, Gant, Reeves, all guys we've seen flashes out of. More consistency would be big there. Flesh out the rest of this lineup. You got 2 freshmen for the Friars coming in, Alvin Breed and Jair Davis. I don't think either of these guys are really supposed to play into the picture too much this year. There's a lot of guys ahead of them, so they can sit back and watch the show and learn. Allen Breed's a guy that I know they like a lot. 6'3", lengthy guard, can do a lot of different things. Jair Davis, 6'7". He's kind of that next Alpha Diallo guy who can play the middle of the offense, middle of the defense, do a lot of different things, score, rebound, and lead you. And then there's two other transfers who were either not expected or unsure about waivers who have actually both gotten them. So the first one, this was the more likely one, Bryson Goodine from Syracuse. He's going to be a sophomore. Didn't play much, didn't do a lot for Syracuse, but was a pretty highly touted recruit. So top 100 four-star guy. You read the scouting report on him, and he sounds like the perfect backup to David Duke. He's a guy that can do a lot of the things Duke does, probably not as well. The guy that couldn't see the floor up there, but he's not going to be asked to do a lot. He's going to be asked to play 5-10 minutes a game and just not be a liability on the court and do a little bit. And then your other one, Ed Croswell. This was a surprise. Guy out of LaSalle, averaged 10 points a game last year, over 7 rebounds. He's 6'8". He's a presence in the post. He reminds you a little bit of a Khalif Young in the way he plays, but he's got post moves like Nate Watson. There was actually, you watch his clips. LaSalle played Villanova last year, and he had a nice block on Colin Gillespie. So I'm sure Providence fans are going to want to go watch that. You'll love seeing that. But he's a guy who, both of these guys, they figure into that depth. And we're looking at 5 guys listed at 6'8" on the roster. Horkler, Gant, Nichols, Monroe, and Croswell can all play the 3, 4, or 5, depending on how this lineup stacks out. Can all play good defense, can all shoot. That's what the Friars love to do. Positionless basketball. They're going to put those big guys out there. And if Jared Bynum comes off the floor, David Duke can play the 1 at 6'5". AJ Reeves can be your shooting guard at 6'6", and you can have 2 or 3 of those 6'8" guys out there just to eat up space late in games and play good defense.
Yeah, Matt, I really love the size of this team. It's positionless. It's filled with matchup nightmares. And there's a variety of different offensive and defensive lineups you can go with. Just a note about the transfers and the freshmen. I do think that Allen Breed and Jair Davis, while they do bring a lot to the table, I don't think they're going to see a lot of minutes because I think Cooley, who is known to favor senior or veteran athletes, whatever you want to call them, is probably going to play Goodine and Croswell over them. Mm-hmm. They both have more experience. I mean, Goodine comes from Syracuse, another power conference school, and Croswell has experience in the paint and is the type of player that resembles a freshman year Emmett Holt. Mm-hmm. I think Cooley would like to have these two guys incorporated into the rotation a little more. But then again, you are so deep. There's so many different varieties of what you can do here. So I really like this lineup a lot. Of course, we're biased because we're Providence fans, though.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, a lineup where you've got Bynum, Duke, and Reeves as your top 3, Watson anchoring in the paint, and Horkler and Gant swapping out for offense and defense at the 4. If you're playing a tight 6-man rotation and you don't want to go with depth, you've got a very good starting lineup there, and you've got guys you can depend on. That's something the Friars and Ed Cooley have struggled with in the past, but that shouldn't be an issue this season. We're running out of time, so let's take a look at the schedule real quick for the Friars. Going to open it up on Wednesday against Fairfield, and then you get into this Maui Invitational premier preseason tournament where the Friars start against Indiana. Providence is the 6th team out of the 8 teams in this tournament according to the preseason KenPom rankings, and I mean there's a lot of talent here. Texas, Davidson, who's a very good team from their conference, Indiana, Providence, UNC, UNLV, Stanford, and Alabama. Lots of talent there. What should Friars fans be expecting from this tournament?
Matt, I think if you're going to look at this tournament, you have to accept that there are a lot of talented teams slated to play. I think you can expect maybe 1 or 2 wins, but then also you can also expect 1 or 2 losses. It's a give or take, but it's not something to be disappointed in if you lose like last season. Last season we lost to competition that was inferior because we undercompeted. That's straight up. This season, with this preseason tournament, it can go either way because these are talented teams. So if you win a few, it's great. It's great for the resume. If you lose a few, you're not going to be penalized too harshly for it.
No, and I think if you want to draw a comparison here, you go back to 2016, in that team where there's good comparisons to be made here, where they had Chris Dunn at the 2, with Kyron Cartwright, the smaller guard, playing the 1. You've got the big man, Ben Bentel, playing down low. Rodney Bullock is your scorer. Jalen Lindsay, who can shoot the 3 ball. A very similar team structure to what you see now from the Friars. They played an early season tournament, Wooden Legacy. You beat Evansville, who's an inferior team in the first game. Then you play a very good Arizona team, and you upset them, get yourself to the championship, and you play Michigan State and you lose, but it's a close game. The only game you lose in your non-conference, and that was a Friars team that was ranked very highly at one point. I think this is a very similar scenario for Providence, where you have opportunities, and even if you don't win a lot of these early games, you have an opportunity to prove that you can play well against top competition. You got an SEC team in Alabama, Big 12 team in Texas, ACC team in UNC, Big 10 team in Indiana, and a Pac-12 team in Stanford. So all of your Power 6 conferences are represented here. And if the Friars can put on a good showing, that's good for the Friars, that's good for the conference, and it'll help both of those groups come March or whenever this tournament ends up getting played for seeding.
Yeah, Matt, I think you need to show up is what it comes down to. If you win games, that's great. It's going to be great for the resume for the eventual March to May madness. Let's call it that. But if you lose games, no one's gonna smack you on the shins too hard, because then again, once this tournament is said and done, you have 20 games in what argues to be one of the best conferences in the NCAA this year to make up ground, just like last year's team did. So, again,
and the Friars still have a game against TCU at TCU in their non-conference schedule as well.
Right. There's plenty of opportunity, but there will be a time and a place for us to discuss that much more in depth. This is only the warm-up.
Yeah. And this is sure to be an exciting season for the Friars. I know Joe and I are both very optimistic about what we see, very optimistic about this lineup, and at this point just ready for that opening tip-off on the season. Joe, any final word?
Yeah, my sister goes to Fairfield, so we have to beat them night 1.
Well, you heard it there. That is a must-win game for the Friars, for sure, at the very least, to keep the Howie household intact. But from Joe, I'm Matt St. Jean. This has been your Providence Friars preview on the Flex. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at @TheFlexHoops, and follow us wherever you are streaming this. We'll have the Creighton Blue Jays up next in our Big East preview, and we'll be bringing you Big East action soon. Thanks for listening.
Go Friars.